All right. So JK Rowling, we know JK Rowling. We know about JK. We know about all of that stuff. JK Rowling, the Harry Potter author, created a beloved children's series, was quite sympathetic to sexual and gender minorities up through 2019, I think. Just kidding, Rowling, we call her. We call her Just Kidding Rowling. Such a silly lady. Always making jokes. They're good jokes, too. I said to everybody, I said, listen to JK Rowling. Her jokes are so good. I'm going to stop. Not helpful. Not helpful. So I wrote this article. It's called The JK Rowling Effect, Cancel Culture's Self-Fulfilling Prophecy, Getting the Monster You Asked For. Now, that title is a bit of a reference to other work that I've done on cancel culture. Cancel culture, I refer to in a quick rundown as the society of subscriptions. Now, yes, a lot of people talk all the time. Oh, I've got so many subscriptions. I got Netflix, I got Hulu, I got Amazon Prime, I got Max, I got Bebo and Hihu and Blue and blah, blah. I can't keep track of them. They look at people that exact same way. And I'll tell you why. It's because everybody's a channel. I subscribe to the channel. I like your videos. I watch your videos. I consume your content. That dynamic is more or less how social shit works now. It's sad but true, but that's how things kind of work now. The Society of Subscriptions, I outlined it. I have a documentary. The documentary's right here. It's called Cancel Culture, Mob Justice, or a Society of Subscriptions. My very important documentaries channel. I would highly recommend anybody check it out. Book versions of most of these up on Amazon. While I am building on that analysis, I don't think that you need to know it specifically for this JK Rowling Effect piece. So I'm just going to start with it. Culture wars' worst villains don't start that way. We were born into a world in motion. Our beliefs, instincts, and errors form in relation to the conditions around us. No one emerges fully formed with a manifesto. But under the right conditions, outrage, shame, and public exile, people don't just reveal who they are, they become something new. Cancel culture doesn't just expose villains, it manufactures them. This is what I call the JK Rowling effect. Someone says or does something off color, maybe likes the wrong tweet, and the response treats it as final. Apologies are refused, the person becomes a symbol and thus an image commodity. Now, if you're not familiar with image commodity, an image commodity is exactly what it sounds like. It is a commodified image. This is an image of me. It is not me. I'm not representing the full character of myself. That's not possible. This is going to be reductive to some extent because you cannot know me in the way somebody who speaks to me every single day does. However, this is actually much closer to like actual back and forth communication than most image commodities. Most image commodities are a broadcast of some kind, an Instagram story, a Good Morning America, tweets. Those are all image commodities. They all are a thing you see and bring in, and the way that you experience personalities and famous people and actors and all of that, you experience them as an image. And in capitalism, you experience them as a commodified image, an image that is produced for exchange. The person may repent, but it is rebuked by a mob, which is consuming the experience of rebuking them, which cannot be experienced if the person isn't a villain. So the attacking of this person is a theme park ride. And without Disney, there isn't a theme park, so you need a Disney. I mean, in this case, Disney is also a villain. So here's the original thing that happened. Old JK got herself in some hot water. Exactly how? Here's the specifics. We hear a lot about JK Rowling's anti-trans views, but the mainstream narrative borderline ignores their origin. In 2018, JK Rowling liked a tweet calling out men in dresses. It wasn't her tweet. It wasn't a statement. It was a like, an ambiguous, low-effort gesture that might have meant agreement, might have meant curiosity, might have meant wanting to come back to the post later, or a mistake made while scrolling carelessly. This sparked a huge amount of backlash, though, including media headlines, denunciations, fan outrage, and social media mobs. What happened next wasn't her being convinced to do better. It was her being cornered into a public identity. Rowling's spokesperson stated that the like was accidental, calling it a clumsy, middle-aged moment. Rowling herself explained that she had intended to screenshot the tweet for research purposes as she was taking an interest in gender identity and matters, as any young adult author is incentivized to do. And I would like to even further say something about that. So let's say you're a young adult author. You see that young adults are becoming more open, at very least, to gender issues. And if that is what your job is, if that is also very much what her self-worth is likely staked around, the authorship of these books for that group of people, you're likely going to try to learn as much as you can about it. You would be incentivized as a young adult author to look into that stuff. It's not an absurd motive or line of reasoning for her investigating those types of things. It's very much in line with who she is and what she does. The attempt to smooth things over didn't matter. She was branded a transphobe, not questioning, not unclear, not in need of dialogue, but a villain. Articles were written, Twitter lit up, a line had been crossed, and for many, the verdict was already in. Over the next year, Rowling doubled down, not by issuing a manifesto, but by defending Maya Forstater, a British researcher whose contract was not renewed after she posted a series of gender-critical statements. There are a lot of arguments about this. I don't agree with this woman. I don't really know anything about what she says. I do think it's weird to just terminate somebody because they have some kind of reactionary view. What's the contradiction? Let's talk about that contradiction, because I don't think that gender is real. I mean, it's real in the sense that it is a social ideology. Sex is not role, however. Sex is physical characteristics. We label certain physical characteristics a certain sex. And whether or not everybody agrees on those things, I'm not going to assert one way or the other. But there is a material difference between what we are labeling as one sex or another. There is no material difference in terms of gender. It is ascribing rules and roles to people based on their junk. I don't like that personally. I think that's wrong. I think that everybody is capable of everything except for, the obvious genetic things that are, I'm not capable of having a pregnancy. The difference between me and a lot of people who are critical of like the traditional gender ideology, I'm also critical of the new gender ideology as well, because for instance, non-binary should not be a third gender with its own set of rules and roles. It should instead be some kind of non-specific expression, but instead it is a third gender with its own set of rules and roles and its own set of norms and its own set of expectations. And it's rigid and it's essentialist and it's bullshit. It shouldn't be like that. That's insane. It's insane that the people that are thinking about that stuff don't understand that they're just repeating the same traditional gender ideology. However, they're adding their own categories to it. I think expression shouldn't be limited. And I think that that's, if we're talking about our society as a society of freedom and choice, the idea of being against expressions, various different expressions, whether that be binary or non-binary, if you're going by the dictionary definitions of those words, as opposed to what they've actually ultimately been employed as, I think that the freedom should be there to be whatever. That's just some nuance to lay on with this discussion. There are reasons why JK Rowling might be curious about certain things and might not necessarily immediately agree with or feel comfortable with certain elements of the ideology that's out there. I understand why people are critical of those things or are curious about those things or are vaguely uncomfortable with those things because they do things that aren't what they say that they do. In the same way that veganism or feminism ultimately act as fandoms instead of liberatory movements, same with LGBTQ. And that isn't to say that that's any different on the right, for instance. The right is exactly the same. Like fascists aren't really like supporters of Hitler generally. Fascists are anti-fans, more or less, of liberalism. They're just anti-fans. They're like the people that hate Taylor Swift. That's it. It's not real. It's just consumption in various ways. Consumption that drives both identity and community. So when people are critical and feel weird about this stuff, I get it. And I don't think that that's a problem. I think that, in fact, when people express that criticism, it should be addressed, even celebrated, that this discussion is happening to people who have non-standard identity. That is how I view it personally. I think that the discussion is good because we learn more as we address contradictions, as opposed to learning nothing or just pretending that everything is as it is, or pretending there's no explanation or no material grounding or no reason for a contradiction. When we do that, what we end up creating is stale conformist worlds. And that's really what, all of this stuff ultimately is. Like LGBTQ is another stale conformist mode within consumerism. Now, it's correct about certain things. Yes, I'm not saying that it's not, but ultimately it is not an actual legitimate change to things. It's a new consumer demographic. That's what it is. And I'm not picking on them specifically because it's not them specifically. It's anything. So again, when people get antsy about this stuff and start criticizing it, I get it. The problem is that the criticism usually ends up just like straightforwardly reactionary. And instead of thinking about it from, okay, what about this is valid? What isn't? What is something I can incorporate into my worldview? What isn't? Instead, they do shit like this, which is just get all antsy and pissy and shitty. It's not investigatory. It's not curious. But also part of the reason that it's not that way is because of what I'm describing in the JK Rowling effect. So let's continue. Rowling's tweet: dress however you please, call yourself whatever you like, but force women out of their jobs for stating that sex is real. And to be fair, this is a defense of Maya Forstater that I ultimately agree with. I don't think that she should have been forced out of her job. I think that she should be regarded as a part of a conversation that perhaps is incorrect, but also in order to have a dialectical conversation, in order to define something, you need something that is in opposition to it, in conflict with it, because without something that is within conflict of something, there isn't a thing. We categorize things because they have conflicts. So to me, these people are a necessary part of the conversation. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I don't think that they should be exorcised from society. I think that's wrong, because in order to have a functioning society, we need to have dialogue and things. And when I say that, I'm not saying like we need to be able to talk to each other fairly. No, we need to be able to constantly reevaluate the boundaries of the things that matter in society. And I think that that's something that people don't really care to do. Like, people want things settled and they want to be able to consume the idea that it's settled. I am on the right side of history, the thing that I believe is correct, and I consume content that tells me that. Tells me on the right side of history, tells me I'm correct, tells me blah, blah, blah. I'm the main character anyways, so all of the content should be servicing me. It's really unfortunate where we are as a society now. So anyway, this was the first real turning point into transformation from beloved author to ideological combatant. Each escalation from critics was met with a harder response from her. By 2020, she published a lengthy essay defending her stance, positioning herself as a feminist concerned about the erosion of sex-based rights. It was thoughtful in parts, incendiary in others, but above all, it was final. She had embraced the role. This is the JK Rowling effect. A person or group expresses a controversial, ambiguous, misinterpreted, or even plainly wrong view, and instead of being engaged, they're fully defined by and attacked for it. The response is moral absolutism. The person is cast as a villain, and that treatment pressures them towards adopting the very identity or ideology they were accused of. The social performance of condemnation doesn't neutralize harm. It accelerates it, manufactures it, and turns a possibility into a certainty. It sucks. And let me go ahead and say this. There is an element of choice. I say this throughout the essay. but there's an element of choice because I have had many, many opportunities to go rogue, so to speak. I am very consistent in my beliefs. I'm often told that I'm a contrarian, like it's often used to write me off, but I have very consistent beliefs. They do evolve over time, but they don't become categorically different. And I've been given the opportunity many times to do the JK Rowling effect, to embody the JK Rowling effect. I have many, many times been attacked for what people misinterpret or what they consider to be ambiguous and therefore scary, et cetera, et cetera. The people calling you a contrarian don't understand the things you say on Twitter. The funny thing about that, anyway, the mechanics. Let's get into the mechanics. The JK Rowling effect is a pattern, repeating, predictable, and scalable. It happened to many long before Rowling. She is not the first. It happens to politicians, celebrities, content creators, activists, and anonymous nobodies in a group chat. What ties the cases together is the sequence. Ambiguity becomes identity, identity becomes target, and target becomes real. First stage, the offense, whether it's real, misread, or exploratory, like in the case of what J.K. Rowling stated her liking of that tweet was during the course of her doing what she thought was research into a thing. And you're welcome not to take that as a straightforward, truthful statement on her part. I don't know. I don't care. It's plausible based on the position she is in, which is a young adult author, like I said. If it were implausible, it'd be one thing, but I think it's entirely plausible that she was researching gender ideology and matters. The offense, whether it's real, misread, or exploratory. Someone says something that lands offside. Maybe it's genuinely offensive. Maybe it's phrased poorly. Maybe it's just a question. The internet doesn't care. Nuance doesn't go viral. Conflict does. Stage 2, the verdict is instantaneous verdict. The person is declared guilty, not out of curiosity, but out of ideology. There is no distinction between wondering about something, being misquoted, or being a bigot. The mob, and often the media, in fact, maybe I should even say primarily the media, collapses all three into one category: bad person. Stage 3, repentance is not accepted. If the person apologizes, it is dissected. If they clarify, it is seen as evasive. If they stay silent, it's taken as proof of guilt. The only acceptable performance is groveling, and even that often fails. The person becomes stuck in a social position they can't get out of no matter what they do. There's no move. It's checkmate. So at stage 4, alienation and re-identification. At this point, a shift happens. The person loses their previous social identity, whether that's fans, colleagues, or otherwise some kind of allies drop them. Could be friends also. And they begin to find validation elsewhere. They go where the love is, like Vance Wagner and BoJack Horseman. Often it's from communities that actually do hold the views they were originally accused of. But now those views come with comfort, belonging, and the feeling of being seen. Stage 5, embrace of the role. Eventually, the person accepts the identity they were cast into, not because they always believed it, but because it's the only identity left available. I often talk about the choice in capitalism. You are given the freedom to choose. However, who decides the things that you choose from? It's the ruling class, the people who are in control. Oh, I'm going to customize my car. I'm going to make it really sweet. I'm going to make it me. But you can only customize it based on the aftermarket parts that you can order. I mean, you can fabricate parts yourself now with a 3D printer. Things are becoming a little more complex, but still, for the most part, people doing that kind of work tend to work in the aftermarket, stuff that is fabricated. And yes, it goes beyond the OEM. However, it does not go beyond what these companies are willing to make, which means is dictated by both profit and ideology. You're not going to be given a choice from them that is dangerous for them. They go from vague gesture to full-blown ideology, not always as a matter of belief, sometimes as a matter of survival. This process is part of a social economy built on incentivized outrage and spectacle. Every step of the JK Rowling effect generates content, quote tweets, takedowns, reaction videos, articles, apologies, counter apologies, explainers, think pieces. Everyone on every side gets a turn performing their moral clarity. The 15 minutes of fame, except for it's 15 seconds because you get it every single news cycle. And that performance necessitates villains. For the progressive side, JK Rowling is to be battled. The condemnation creates a rush of righteousness, a sense of moral superiority, and a temporary clarity. But it only works if the object of condemnation feels deserved. If there's room for doubt, the performance weakens. So complexity gets stripped away, context becomes threat. The person on the other end cannot just be wrong, they must be evil. This is especially potent within fandom cultures, where identity is cultivated through alignment with media, creators, ideologies, and each other. These commodified communities operate competitively. Belonging is earned by taking the right positions loudly and visibly. For Rowling's LGBTQ fans especially, the Harry Potter universe wasn't just entertainment, it was a safe space, and Rowling's perceived betrayal of that space became a portrayal of prophylicit self, which, if you're unfamiliar with prophylicity, see Hans Gregory Moeller's work. It's very good. It runs very parallel to my work on cultivated identity and fandom. It's very, very similar. Mine trends a little bit closer towards class analysis, whereas his trends a little bit closer to maybe a slightly more meta-modern, slightly less economic means of analysis. Still very good. Also a vehement critic of PhilosophyTube, and we love that here on this channel. Anyway, to remain in good standing, fans had to choose between her or themselves. Influencers within those ecosystems have even stronger incentives. Changing your mind alienates your audience. Nuance threatens your brand. And if your brand is built around visibility in a moral fandom, such as veganism, feminism, LGBTQ+, like I said, these are fandoms, sorry to report. If your brand is built on those things, forgiveness becomes financially disincentivized. This is explicitly a large part of why I do not even attempt to make my analytic content into a job. Would I be mad to make a bunch of money for saying what I think? No. But to pursue that is to pursue incentivized thinking. And yes, it's not entirely possible to avoid incentivized thinking, but it is possible not to pursue it. Meanwhile, the person being cast out, Rowling in this case, is stripped of access to the general public space. She's no longer neutral. She is radioactive. Mainstream fans with progressive leanings abandon her. Moderate coverage vanishes. And the only remaining audience willing to embrace her is the very crowd she was accused of aligning with in the first place. At this point, a new fan relationship forms, one based not on her writing, but on her resistance. She is now financially and emotionally incentivized to perform for them. The backlash doesn't just exile her, it delivers her to the reactionaries who are all too eager to give her a home, a cause, and a cash flow. Also, this is a little note. It needs to be said this is not exclusive to one side of the political spectrum. Many of the people Rowling fights with, leftists, pro-trans people, are also subject to this exact same dynamic. I term it yes, but it's good leftism. That is another clear example of the JK Rowling effect. This is on my Substack. If you want to read about yes, but it's good leftism, there's a piece on it there. Also, yes, but it's good leftism. I talk about that in Horseshoe Theory is Right, but Not How You Think, if you want to check out that documentary. Wrapping up this section of it, platforms don't intervene, they amplify. The algorithm knows that escalation keeps people engaged, and radicalization is more addictive than dialogue. At scale, moral condemnation becomes content. Keeping the show going is profitable. Fixing the problem is not. Our man, Kanye West is a case study. I'm sorry, we got this video is so fun.
The thing about the red hat that drove me to a point of exhaustion, which was misdiagnosed by I'm not going to say what race, what people, doctor, and what hospital, and what media went to. We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
That's so fucking funny. It's so fucking funny. Seriously, that's so fucking funny. I'm not going to say what the race is. I can't do that. It was a Jewish doctor. It's so funny. It's literally like there's no like comedic performance that's better than that. If he was doing that on purpose, I would call that brilliant comedy. I don't know if that's done on purpose, though. I think that it's just kind of him. Anyway, if JK Rowling was cast as a villain and eventually accepted the role, Kanye West has taken it a step further. His song Heil Hitler isn't subtle. The title alone is designed to offend. But the lyrics are more than just shock value. They're a twisted articulation of what it means to be cast out, stripped of grace, and locked into a narrative you didn't want. This isn't an ideological manifesto. It's retaliation. And he tells you that himself. He very specifically tells you that himself. That's the thesis. Not, I've always been this. Not, this is what I believe. It's, you decided I was a monster, so fuck it, I'm a monster, and fuck you. That's what it is. But let's look at what leads up to that line. The song opens up with pain and grievance, okay? Man, these people took my kids from me. They froze my bank account. I got so much anger in me, got no way to take it out. Which is sad as shit. Like, honestly, like, when I think of the actual, like, real feeling behind that line, it makes me sad as shit. Kanye sets the emotional context early. Loss of control, loss of family, financial ruin. That's the core wound. Not politics, not Hitler, not ideology. I did say, to be clear, when Kanye says these people, he is referring to Jewish people.
We know I can't say that. It was a Jewish doctor.
And he does actually demonstrate anti-Semitism, just as Rowling is, at this point, actually vehemently anti-trans. It's important not to miss this, but it's also not the point. The point is lashing out. He moves from grief into psychological fragmentation. Think I'm stuck in the Matrix. Where the fuck's my nitrous? I'm going to try to remember to fix that later. I copied the lyrics from a website that had transcribed them. And I didn't want them to be censored, although I'm not going to put the N-word in. But the fucks and stuff I don't care about. So I forgot to change it there. Anyway, he moves from grief into psychological fragmentation. Think I'm stuck in the Matrix. Where the fuck's my nitrous? It's dissociation, paranoia, and posturing. The tone shifts fast. Before long, he's diving into crass self-degradation. Yes, I'm a cuck. I like it when people fuck on my bitch. This is not a sincere... Like, and this is the thing. Like, I see all these people saying, oh, he admitted to being a cuck. Are you that fucking stupid? Like, you take everything as a serious statement. How do you fucking do that? How do you do that? How do you live in the world and take everything at face value? This isn't a sincere confession. He's working to beat others to the punch. He's humiliating himself before anyone else can do it for him. It's an active strategic shame, a twisted flex. He isn't saying, I'm weak. He's saying, try hurting me. I already did it better. I'm sure you've heard that before somewhere. Somebody said something like, you think you can make fun of me? I've already made fun of me. That's why a lot of people are self-deprecating. They're trying to beat other people to the punch. The shit I'm posting on Twitter, they telling me, yay, don't say that. He's bringing back his public image. He's being warned, censored, silenced. Then the line that centers the whole track. They see my Twitter, but they don't see how I'm feeling. So I become a Nazi. Yeah, bitch, I'm the villain. If you're paying any attention, you have to know what I'm about to say. This is not political declaration. This is revenge theater. It's the JK Rowling effect sung in first person. He doesn't claim to have always held fascist beliefs. He doesn't explain or defend anything. He doesn't articulate a worldview of any kind. He frames the transformation as a reaction. He became what the mob told him he was, not because it's true, but because there's power in owning the insult when you're not allowed to be anything else. From here, the chorus loops endlessly. N-word, Heil Hitler, all my N-words, Nazis, N-word, Heil. I'm sorry. So you look, how do you publish this? This is so stupid. It's so silly. It's so silly. I'm not offended by this. Like, I am of some Jewish heritage. I'm not offended by this. It is absurd to be offended by this. To be offended by this is to be offended by, like, 4chan. It's like, shut the fuck up. You know what this is. It's not somebody who is serious. It is somebody who is trying to push your fucking buttons. Where are we? The repetition is numbing. It's not about meaning. It's about saturation. He turns the phrase into something that has no room for interpretation, no subtext, no escape. In between, we get image flashes. She wanna fuck in Japan. I put chrome on the bends. She reaching down in my pants. She got the world in her hands. These aren't just brags like a rapper. They're specifically like villain role stuff. Wealth, sex, danger, transgression. He's not being coherent. He's not, as I said here, interested in coherence. He's constructing an image, unrepentant, obscene, above shame, or below shame, perhaps, one of the two. That's what makes this track such a pure case of the JK Rowling effect. Kanye doesn't sound like a man converted by ideology. He sounds like a man cornered by public condemnation and choosing to punch his way out by becoming the thing he's accused of. Not because he believes it, but because in his eyes, that's the only path. It's not sincere per se, it's worse. Regardless, this song is being integrated into public consciousness. I see people calling it catchy, and I don't quite get it, to be clear. I don't really find it that catchy. Like I said, I think that the song is actually below Kanye West as a producer. He's a brilliant producer, and I find it to be quite lazy, both lyrically and in terms of production. Obviously, taste is subjective, but all I hear is a very mentally ill man mad about how he's been treated. Make no mistake, I feel very bad for him, and I don't mean in some sense of performative pity. I don't see myself as above Kanye West. If I had my kids taken from me, I would be a rabid dog. I sympathize with him because how he feels about all the endless bad faith attacks on him. I have been through similar. He's not just performing the JK Rowling effect. He didn't start as an anti-Semite, and he is now, no matter what degree of irony is layered in. Even so, many are resonating with the song for completely non-bigoted reasons. Many are edgelords with various social grievances, some valid, some not. Some probably have bad beliefs. Some probably have good beliefs. To me, someone who abhors Hitler and anti-Semitism, I'm not even offended by the song. I can see what it is. It's rebellion. It's doing what you're not supposed to do. People do that for a reason, and in a lot of ways, that reason is the JK Rowling effect. Many of our villains, real and pretend, become villains due to a chip on their shoulder, a genuine slight that burrows deep and becomes a resentment. Conclusion: when commodification, social punishment, and unresolved resentment collide, it's not just cultural glitch or personal failure. It's a system. It's social production. The JK Rowling effect is when I didn't capitalize effect there. The JK Rowling effect is when commodification and market incentive interface with the lack of ability to deal with that resentment in a manner which moves it towards its nullification. This is, of course, cyclical. There is market incentive to keep people from developing that very capacity that would dissolve the conflict, and without the conflict, there's no content. At its core, it's a process of villain creation, a cycle in which ambiguity or dissent is collapsed into identity, and that identity is punished so thoroughly that it becomes the one thing left to cling to. People are cast out or branded irredeemable and then expected to quietly disappear. But they don't. They harden, they reorganize, and eventually they perform the role they were given because there's no path back and because the system rewards the spectacle. The process feeds itself. Public shame produces content. Conflict fuels platforms. Identity-based outrage becomes marketable inventory, and any possibility of genuine dialogue, of tension being metabolized instead of monetized, is structurally suppressed. People still make choices. Rowling made hers, Kanye made his. I'm not saying that human beings are not dynamic and capable of choice. Certainly, I would not do that. But conditions dictate what you are choosing from. I've made a much more difficult choice, in my opinion, to just like genuinely stick to my views and attempt to be as honest and straightforward about them as possible, even though I am misrepresented constantly. I think that's a harder choice because I think I honestly could make a lot more money if I were to do the other thing, but I'm not interested in that. I'd rather make money in other ways like jobs and just say what I really think. Anyway, people still make choices. Rowling made hers, Kanye made his, but the conditions under which they made those choices were shaped by an ecosystem designed to trap people in their worst moments and reward them for doubling down. People do not start as villains. There's a system in place that makes villainy the most feasible path to survival. Do I feel they could come back? Yes, I do. Anybody can do anything. Can and will are different things, though. I think they can come back. I don't think they will come back. It's like narcissists. Narcissists can seek treatment and can become better. They can change. Anyone can change. Will they change? Probably not. Most narcissists absolutely will. Some of them will. And they're the ones that prove that change is possible. But most of them don't, because why would they? Incentive is much stronger than anything that you have going in terms of predisposition. I'm sorry. It's just true. If you are interested in my writings, it's petercoffin.substack.com. Can't wait for the BreadTube headlines. Peter Coffin defends Kanye's Nazism. Is this a good stream? Did we do well? Before I stop, I want to know, are we satisfactory? Did this work? Did we make sense? Do we understand what the JK Rowling effect is? And are we going to press like and subscribe and money me? Me and money needing a lot now. Like, fucking give me money, you absolute turds. Give me money, you absolute turds. Thanks, folks. It was very nice hanging out with all of you, and I hope you have a good evening. Bye-bye.